Hey guys, how are all my hair comrades today? Rick here. We're going to talk about something that I think is really important today, and it is some of the trial and error things that I have discovered. I've done several cut-ins this week of guys that who came in with a new hair system stuck on their head to me to get that baby cut in, and so I love doing that. I really enjoy doing that, and I love enjoy meeting you guys. But I've learned some things along the way, and there are some things that are overwhelmingly reoccurring when I see that. There's some tips and tricks and things not to do, and some mistakes I think I see uh, some making. And so stay tuned. We're going to talk about those things in just a minute. Greetings, all my hair comrades. Hey, so like I said, we're going to talk about some things that I see when you guys are coming in to get these cut ins. Uh, Uh, yeah, so when these guys have come in and they have hair on their head, it's never been cut. The system's never been cut. So they usually have it, of course, under a ball cap when they come in. Hold on. Take it off and I wet it down and we start the cut in. Talk about what you want to do. Another thing, when you're going in for these cut ins, one of the best things you can do is to take a picture of what you want to look like. Maybe it's a picture of you yourself when you had hair, or maybe it's someone else that whose hair you would really like to have, which a hair system. You can just about have anybody's hair you want, right? And take a picture in. Now, whether or not you can look exactly like that picture, the chances of that are rare that it's going to be an exact duplicate. But what it does is it gives your barber a picture of what you're seeing and what you're envisioning, because so many times it's difficult to put into words exactly how you want it to look. You know, you can say, I want it faded on the sides, I want it, but to have a visual just helps me whenever I'm doing the cut in to see what you're going after. And another thing it will do is it lets me know how conservative you are, or how maybe you're not conservative at all. You're crazy as can be and you don't mind having wild, crazy hair. And so I see these pictures and I think, okay, this picture is a very conservative look. Or I'll see another one, so that's not conservative at all. So it lets me know. I had a guy, one of the best things that was ever said to me is this guy come in and said, Rick, do it as though it were on your head. Okay, well, that's a wide open door. I know exactly what I want and how I want to look. So if you want that too, well, then we're in business for sure. So that was a lot of fun. But a picture speaks a thousand words, as they say. So, something that I have noticed time and time again is involving the front hairline. Of course, that's exactly what I'm going to say, right? The front hairline. I think everybody we say this together. The front hairline. Really, really important in making or breaking the way a hair system looks. The hairline, the temple area, and the blend around the sides, all of that. But the front hairline's number one. And so guys come in and I look at that front hairline first thing to see how they've done. And I try to be gentle about this. I don't want to say, boy, you sucked at this, which no one has. No one has. But there have been some who have been better than others. But what I see is this is that, again, there's been it's been cut in too deeply. That skin that's on the front of that hairline, you want to cut only that skin off. And actually, for me, I like it better when there's a 16th of an inch, maybe, of skin still in the front, because you don't really want to cut a single hair coming out of that unit. And you don't want to cut up into where hair is coming out. You want to always stay just barely below that hairline. And so, this system that I have on now, I want you to look. And first of all, let me say it's darker. I have a lot of gel on this, so it looks darker than it actually is. This is 40% gray, but I don't know. I think maybe it's more like 20% gray, because I was a little surprised at how dark it was. But, not that big a deal to me. And, I know white beard, black hair. Yeah. Oh, well. So if you can have purple hair, I can have darker hair, right? I think. So you look at the front hairline, the way that's shaped. Up here, this one had hair kind of growing down to a peak in the very middle of the front. I like that, because to me it just looks even more natural. So I stayed right at the hairline, and then it dropped down like this, and then went back up again. And so it's this and back. And so it gives kind of a natural recession to the look there. And obviously, all you guys think that looks better, as do I, rather than just a straight line across the front. But I see guys all the time, bless your heart, are cutting up into that hairline too far. And what's even worse is coming some of the hair that's growing out of the system. So what you create is a little burr right there in the front of this little bitty short prickly hair that can be done nothing with. Really needs to come in and cut that much more off, I guess. But what happens too is you cut back a little too far and you get into a more denser area of the hair system. So it starts looking like that wall of hair, and which is not ever good. But I had a guy just to come in, and he admitted it. He said, I got a little carried away, cut too far. He cut too far back, and he cut some hair. And so you could see where the mistake was made. And he said, well, this will just be my extra one. And I kind of gave him a little tip on how to over direct the front to kind of come down and cover over that a little bit. And then I assured him too, the average person is not going to look that close and they're not going to see that and blah, 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 blah. And they aren't. But we all know how great it is when we look and see that it's perfect. That's one of the things. The other is I see often that it's overlapping. The system's actually too big for the bald spot. And so countless times I've trimmed a little spot off of the very back where it's overhanging down into the bio hair. And if it's not set too far back, I'll trim that off. But it's set too far back, I'll say, okay, the next time just pull it down just about a quarter of an inch, sometimes even a half an inch, too much. And if you can do that without cutting that off, then you'll be in business. But most of the time, it's sitting in the right spot and that back just needs to be trimmed off, which that's not a problem. The only thing it is if you cut up into that front hairline. That's a no fixer, and that pretty much, if you've done it seriously, that just trashes the system pretty much. These things can be very, very forgiving other than that. This haircut that I've got right now is, you've heard me talk about occasionally get a disconnected cut. And I haven't done this in a long time, but that's what this is, very disconnected. So you can see, here's my bio hair right here. And this is way down to here, way down to here. This is all about to the top of my ear, to kind of do that. And I've enjoyed it. Another thing that I see is that it was obvious that there was too much adhesive put on the system. There is a certain amount of finesse that's required to get the Walker's Ultra Hold on your system the right way. And the right way is this, this is what works best for me. I know that when I was at Super Hair Pieces, they used a little spatula to do this. So I tried that, and I don't know, I guess I've already learned the tricks of the trade with this little brush, and it worked better to me, and I was not in the mood to make more mistakes by using a spatula and causing myself trouble. So I continued on with this little cheapy disposable brush that I get on Amazon. And so I will squirt a little bit of this Walker's Bond on the very front hairline, just a bead of it across, a small bead of it across. And I will start with the brush to spread it out across there. And I know what you're going to say. Man, that Ultra Hold is so stringy and sticky and messy and difficult to work with. Well, it is until you learn how, until you get some experience. But while that bond is still very, very wet, that's why I put it on just the front first. I spread that out, and I take this brush and I kind of put it where the bond is, and then I spread it out to the edge. I'll kind of load my brush with some of the bond where I've squirted that line, and then load it out to the edge. And it also works better that if you take long long sweeping strokes with this, instead of doing this, what you're going to do is every time you lift that brush, it's going to string up and kind of make a mess. But if you'll put it down after you load your brush and just go very smoothly across that whole area, And you may want to go back and look at the edge because it's got to have glue on it. If it doesn't have bond on it, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to stick, quite obviously. Is you may have to go back and see if you can spread it out closer to the edge, or you may have to load a little bit more on your brush. Sometimes even I'll even take just the tiniest drop of that Ultra Hold bond and just squirt it right on my brush, tap it on the middle of the system somewhere, just kind of spread it out, and then go right to that spot. And it's a lot easier than you think to get it spread out there. Long sweeping stroke. And then after you get it on there, then leave it alone because it's going to start drying muy pronto. So I do that all the way around the system. And then I take kind of a squiggly line down the top middle of it. And I just kind of spread it out. The entire top's not glued to my head. It's just got all the way around the edges and then kind of a S curves all around the top of my head. Spread it out, but it's not completely covered. And then I wait until it dries enough, but not too much. So how do you know the difference in that? So when you got the bond on there, the Walters Ultra Hold, and you touch it with your finger, it should feel tacky, but it should not string up with your finger. If it comes up and it goes a long stream of it on your finger, it's still too wet. The issue is not allowing it to get too dry in one place and not dry enough in the other, because it takes you a minute to get all the way around. And when you do it on that front, it starts to dry right then. So this is what I would suggest, and what has worked for me is that when you put it on the front of that system, which is what you do first, put it on the front of that system, it starts to dry. You work on the back. When the front of it is perfect to the touch, where it is tacky but not stringy, and the back portion of it may still be a tiny bit stringy, and if you've not gotten too much glue back there, it'll be okay. As long as it's not just super running on it wet, and if it does run, you've got way too much bond. But the most important part is this front hairline, again, is that it is exactly where it needs to be as far as how dry it is. So when it's just tacky to the touch but not stringy, even though maybe the back part of it is probably a little bit too wet and maybe a little bit stringy, go ahead and put it on your head, because that's really going to be okay, take care of itself. Where it's not, when it's too wet or too much glue, is right up here, because you press it down, it oozes out, it makes a mess, the front hair sticks to it, then you've got a problem. So the minute this front hairline is dry enough, don't let it get too dry. And that's why I say go ahead and do it, because if you let it get too dry, then it's not going to adhere well. And so you know how I do it, bend over and stick it on my head. And I can't really tell if the back is, I mean, I know it's stringy, but it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't really bother anything. It stays put and then it dries under there and it's fine. So that's something else I see, is because around here there's some glue that's oozed out. It's kind of sticky, and so it either lets me know one of two things: you put too much bond, or you didn't let it dry enough. So when you don't let it dry enough, it causes all manner of problems, because when you go to put it on your head, like I said, it wants to ooze out from under it a bit. Then the hair wants to get stuck to it, and then it just makes a big mess. And so there's a sweet spot in there about how dry that bond needs to be. Front hairline says it all. If it's good, the rest of it doesn't have to be perfect as far as the sweet spot and exactly dry enough to work, so long as that front works and works well. Next is make sure that your template fits, so your hair will fit your head, that you don't have extra hair hanging over into your bio hair, because that makes a mess. These little brushes are superior. The Walters Ultra Hold is superior. Then after you get it glued on your head, you don't want to wash it for 24 hours. Whenever guys come into me, I will wet it with a water bottle, or I'll take them to the shampoo bowl and I'll wet it down with water very carefully and do the cut in that way. But that's some of the things I see most often that that we have to work around to make the best of a not perfect situation. So those I hope will help. Now let's talk about some products. I've already mentioned the Walters Ultra Hold. However, now for the years that I've been doing this, I tend to, and maybe it's a fault, I tend to find something that works, And the cliche is, don't fix it if it's not broke. And so that's my motto. You know, I've got this down to a science where I can slick it off really, really quickly. But I watched a Super Hair Pieces video, and so I'll shout out to Hello Tara. She had a video where she talked about something that she loved, and it is, you know, just a second, I'll tell you exactly what it is. Supreme Ghost Bond. I heard her talk about this, and the way she said it was a product, a new product I love. So I thought, well, okay, Tara's pretty trustworthy little girl, so I think I'm going to give it a spin. So I got some. I've used it once, and it's on here right now. So my review of the Supreme Ghost Bond is this. First of all, I have not been a fan of Ghost Bond before. I've tried to swim in it, doesn't work. I've tried to work out and sweat in it, doesn't work. Even getting out of the shower in the mornings, doesn't work for me. It's loose in the front. It's turned white because that's what Ghost Bond does when it gets too hot again. And then it can get gooey again. And particularly if you have a lace system and you use Ghost Bond, if you get too hot and it gets gooey again, what's it going to do? It's going to soak up through that lace. Then you've got Ghost Bond in the hair, and all of a sudden it's not invisible like a ghost. You can see it everywhere. And but I wanted to give this a shot on my skin system, so I did. This is a 4-day old install. And I have to say that Ricky Boy here, I think I like this for several reasons. Now, I haven't had it on for 7 days, you know, and the true confession is I normally don't have it on any more than 5. I do it about that often because it's easy for me to do, but so far so good. It's a heck of a lot easier to work with than the Walker's Ultra Hold. And I would go so far as to say, if you're a newbie with this, start with this. Don't start with the Walker Ultra Hold, because I've talked to guys who got so frustrated with that Walker's that they were just about to give it all up. They'd get it on their hands, on their fingers, in the hair. Before you know it, they've got a big mess. It's on their head. It's not right. It's got to come off. And then it's just constant problems. But like I said, after you develop that finesse about putting that Ultra Hold out, it's a tank. You can be in the ocean, in the pool, on a roller coaster, on a motorcycle, in a convertible, all those things that you've seen me do, and it's not going to fail you. So I haven't put the Ghost Bond to any of those tests at this point. In the morning in the shower, of course, I'm careful not to use just barely warm water when I'm washing the system. But it didn't do what the other Ghost Bond did. It didn't turn white. It didn't come loose. It was still good. And then let's go to the luxury aisle, can we? And it's not because they're terribly expensive, because they're not, but it's just something that you don't have to have, but it's really nice if you do. These remove pads, and I use these for several different things. After I have let a unit soak in C22 with the cotton dabbed on it, I take another cotton ball and I start getting the bond off. But it's normally going to leave a little bit more of a residue, and so I use one of these to go back and do that final clean on that skin hair system, and it'll probably work on a lace unit as well. And then I just kind of turn it over. So when I take my unit off, even though you've got Sun Bond on it, and I dab that with cotton as well, and I start trying to rub it off, boom, again, to the top of my head to get the last remaining residue of that bond off of my scalp. So those little things that I have learned to love, and one new product that I think I'm probably going to love. Anyway, guys, I hope you have gotten something from this video. So, hey, peace out. I won't take any more of your time. I hope you have a great day, and let's do hair, and let's do it well, and let's live life to the fullest. All the best. Later.